Hello, I'm Kurt Lidke, Executive Director of Klamath Film, and you just watched Rooted in Culture, Oregon's Wild Camas, a look at how food aligns with cultural identity in the state of Oregon. With us is the film's director, Michelle Alvarado. Hello, Michelle. Welcome back to the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me and for all you do to make this happen.
Well, you had a film in last year's festival as well, so you're no stranger to KIFF nor to outdoor filmmaking in Oregon. This film has some absolutely stunning shots of Oregon landscapes. I could have almost just watched this just for the scenery without the added cultural insight. What drew you to wanting to tell this story?
Yeah, well, we've done quite a few films with the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs, and on one of our projects about some river restoration that they were doing, I was invited to join on one of the Camas cookouts. And so me and a camera operator went and spent some time with them as they were preparing the Camas. And I've always had an interest in wild foods and how important they are both to be taken care of ecologically and also as a sort of a freedom knowing you don't have to go to a grocery store. And so with that, I wanted to see the whole process, which takes a couple weeks and it's very seasonal. You have to hit the Camas when it's ready to be harvested. And so while we were out in John Day on a private property, I noticed this huge field of Camas. And one of the challenges the tribes are having is finding fields of Camas on federal land. So a lot of it's becoming privatized. And so I asked the landowner if this family could come and harvest, and he said yes. And so the family thankfully drove all the way out there. And so we were able to capture them to harvest it. And I've been holding on to that footage. And then when Travel Oregon approached us looking for sort of more culturally focused stories, we pitched it to them and we were able to finish it off.
Fantastic. So in the course of making this film, did you get to imbibe in eating some Camas root? And for those of us who have never had this before, what is Camas like?
Yeah, it's tricky to describe. I actually almost put that in the film. They tend to put it in a sweetener, so it's almost like a roasted root with a little sweetener. It's probably not a great description, but it's a root food. I guess that would be good. A nice little side story that I didn't mention was Margaret. She was actually in the boarding schools as a little girl. And so she used to use Camas, and it was during a time where they didn't get a lot of food. And so she would put it in her pocket. She would harvest it on the side and use it as a little snack to get her through some of that harder times.
Interesting. So the film is tagged with Travel Oregon. So how did your organization and Travel Oregon get involved in the production, and how did all that come together?
Yeah, so we've done a few films with them already. And seeing that it was a pandemic, we sort of had to look back to some of the footage we've already captured. And so we were able to utilize the footage we had already and then finish capturing what we had. So we interviewed David, and then we worked with another person who had some footage of the actual cooking. So it was a collaborative effort, but the timing just worked well that Travel Oregon was interested, but we often talk to them about different stories.
Sure. Well, it's tough enough to make film as is, but then you throw the pandemic in and it makes it doubly difficult. But since your specialty seems to be so much of outdoor film footage, I guess it's not as much of an impact, or has it still made the production process compounded in difficulty as a result of the ongoing COVID pandemic?
Actually, yes. When March, when everything hit, we had a whole month of production, mostly in Washington State, and we had to pivot on everything or pause. So that was challenging, but thankfully, most of the things we were able to pivot. But yeah, having it outdoors actually does help for those projects. We also found ourselves doing a lot more animation. You may not have noticed, hopefully, but David actually was interviewed out in the rain under this canopy because of COVID. We didn't want to go inside with him. So thankfully, with cameras and boom mics, you can stand 6 feet away from people. So that helps.
This is really important from a documentation standpoint, not just film, but we continue to lose tribal elders. And as we lose them, many traditions are disappearing from historic Native American culture in Oregon. Did you feel an added importance with this production to showcase something that has been a vital part of Oregon's past, but could be lost with time? Because I certainly wasn't aware of Camas Root before I saw your film.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would love to do a whole series on having various elders share their knowledge, even about basket weaving, some of the different foods and ways that they even just took care of the land. I think they're incredible caretakers and really important to be a voice in all of our management of natural resources. So yes, it's really critically important, and I hope more tribes will start to interview and capture more elders. In fact, we just did with a tribe down in Klamath to capture a couple of the elder stories, and hoping to share some of those soon.
Fantastic. Well, something that's really fascinating that doesn't get mentioned in the film, but it is in your overview of your production, is that Camas has been part of tribal community diets for 10,000 plus years. And archaeologists have found Camas roasting pits dating back 8,000 plus years ago. Do you know more of the history behind that? Because I think this film could be a lot longer, delving into the whole history of it, because I think it's just utterly fascinating. It's been lost to time, of course, but at some point, someone somewhere along the way decided, what if I pull this up from the ground, roast it for 3 days? I wonder if I could eat that. That's so curious to me. Like who somewhere at some point decided maybe I can actually eat that thing if I roast it for a couple of days.
Yeah, you've done your research, so well done. Yeah, and I think that comes to the point where it's really there's actually a camas that is poisonous, and so it is important to know what you're harvesting, and that's why it's really critical that we get these stories so that those who've come before us, who've trialed what to eat and what not to, will make sure we keep that and guide us in that. I do know one of the statements that Margaret said was that they're looking a lot smaller now, and she thinks something may have to do with the fire retardant that's being used. So I think it's also important that we also make sure that we're paying attention to these edible foods or all natural resources as well. But yes, the history goes quite a ways back, and there's just this incredible freedom to know that you don't have to go to your grocery store to get the food you need.
Right.
And yeah, so I think it's super valuable, but it's also really important to go with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Most definitely. Yeah. Same thing with like berry picking or anything else along those lines. So uh, I am curious as far as the film production side. Now, of course, it was outdoor shoots, but did you have to like reduce crews or throw in added protocols? Because it's so difficult to make a film regardless, much less everything that's compounded with all of the restrictions as the pandemic lingers.
Yeah, we're a pretty scrappy group. Typically, there's only 2 or 3 of us anyway, and we work very hard to
Okay.
to do that. So, but yes, even with that, we did have to reduce down to 2. In fact, one of our camera operators is actually a tribal member as well. He ran camera, Woodrow, and yeah, so we were also able to have some of the culture behind the scenes as well.
Great. So where does Camas actually grow, or like what are the proper growing conditions, because I pardon my naivete, but I had actually never heard of camas before I saw your film.
Yeah, you actually can find it throughout Oregon. It's all the way. We filmed it in John Day, but you'll also find it in the Willamette Valley. So basically, if you look in the spring for these purple flowers, you can look it up online, and they tend to like kind of low meadow, grassy areas. But they even stretch over to Idaho, I believe Utah. So it's pretty available, and potentially could be on someone's land. So we were on farmland where we went to harvest it.
Okay. So what do you hope that people learn or take away from watching your film?
I'm in envy of the tribes because they have such a incredible history and culture and connection to this place. I really want more of those stories to be told because of that. And I think everyone can be more connected to our land through those stories. And also just to really see the value of the natural resources that are out there, that there are things, even within our backyard that can be incredibly valuable and important to us. So I feel very grateful that the tribes have invited me in and our team to tell these stories. And I hope more tribes will do that. And I hope more people will take that opportunity to share the story.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for your film and for joining us yet again, and for yet another year of being involved in the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Rooted in Culture, Oregon's Wild Camas will be screened on Sunday, September 19th at 12:30 p.m. at the Ross Ragland Theater in our Northern Shorts category, and also available on demand all week. Thank you, Michelle, so much for the time. Really appreciate it.